Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Hush Up and Listen. I am your host, Krisstan, and over the past few months, we've explored various topics. We've explored barrier health, sensitive skin, seasonal reactivity, and how thoughtful treatment choices using tools can support healthier skin. Today, we're tackling one of the most common and often misunderstood skin concerns, acne. This is also my favorite topic to talk about in the industry. I specialize in treating acne. I just love to talk about acne, if you know me. So, acne is a skin condition and disorder that affects millions of people of all ages. And despite how common it is, there's still a lot of misconceptions surrounding what causes breakouts and how to treat them effectively. So in this episode, we're going to look beyond the surface of that. We're going to discuss what acne really is, the factors that contribute to breakout formation, and why approaching the barrier first can lead to healthier, more resilient skin and faster acne clearing. Later in the episode, we're also going to hear from a special guest who will share their perspective on treating acne in the real world. So let's get started, because I am obviously very excited to talk about this. June, if you didn't know, is also Acne Awareness Month. So I think this month is perfect to break down any misconceptions surrounding acne and just educate people more about acne and what it truly is, and that clearing and that reaching a level of clearness is possible with the right treatments, the right skincare routine, and the right expert guiding you. So what is acne? Acne is an inflammatory skin condition and disorder of the pores, and it occurs when hair follicles, also known as your pores. Now, I know there's a misconception out there that hair follicles and pores are two different things. They are the same exact thing. They just have interchangeable names. So some people refer to the pore as a hair follicle. Some people refer to a hair follicle as the pore. Same exact thing. And so it is a condition that occurs when our hair follicles become clogged with dead skin cells, which creates a blockage within the pore. And that traps sebum, or your oil, and any excess dirt or debris within the pore. And a lot of people think of acne simply as clogged pores. That's just part of the acne equation. The reality is actually much more complex, because there are several factors, I like to call them triggers, that contribute to acne development. And that includes excess oil production, abnormal shedding of skin cells, that's also known as retention hyperkeratosis within the industry, bacterial activity from the C. acnes bacteria specifically, inflammation, and not just acute inflammation, but overall chronic inflammation, and hormonal influences. So these are just some of the major triggers that contribute to acne formation on top of the pore being clogged. So this is why acne doesn't look the same for everyone. Some people have blackheads and congestion, which is still considered acne. It's just known as non-inflamed acne. And then you have others that struggle with more inflamed acne, like your papules, your pustules, or your deeper cystic lesions. So understanding what's really driving your acne or your client's acne is often the first step towards treating it successfully. So let's go over briefly some of the common acne triggers. So like we said, acne can be influenced by a variety of internal and external factors, and some of the most common include hormonal fluctuations, stress. Yes, stress plays a big role with acne formation, genetics, certain medications, lifestyle habits, certain skincare products that aren't great for your skin, and diet. Diet is also a very big one. Now, there is one in here that you probably did not think is an acne trigger, but it very much is, and that's stress. So stress in particular is interesting, because what it does is when we are stressed, it raises our cortisol levels within the body, and that can increase more inflammatory signals throughout the body. And since acne is an inflammatory condition, it's very sensitive to inflammation that can worsen existing breakouts or even cause more breakouts to form. So managing stress, easier said than done, but definitely one of the things that I encourage my acne clients to focus on during their clearing journey and even beyond their clearing journey. So once they've achieved clear skin, they should still be managing their stress levels and everything else, all of the other triggers specifically for them. And it's also important to remember that acne is not caused by poor hygiene. I have seen this everywhere on social media that you have dirty acne. Dirty acne is not a thing. In fact, if you over cleansed your skin and over treated your acne, that usually creates even additional problems by damaging the skin barrier. So you have to be very strategic when treating acne, and hygiene is just not the sole reason why you have acne. Again, there's so many more contributors, so many more factors to it. That leads me to the barrier, because that is the first thing I usually treat, not just with all my clients, but specifically with my acne clients, because for years, acne treatment focused heavily on stripping oil from the skin, aggressively targeting breakouts with really aggressive chemical peels. But as technology has evolved, as knowledge has grown, we now know that an impaired barrier can actually increase inflammation, sensitivity, and irritation, thus making acne worse. So that's why we also have to focus on supporting the skin barrier along with our acne treatment. And I can give you a really great personal example. I went to a dermatologist when I had a really bad cystic acne. I was almost on my way to Accutane, and I was using heavy topicals. I was using high prescription benzoyl peroxide, clindamycin, and tretinoin all at the same time. And if you have ever been on those topical medications, you would know how harsh they are. My skin just felt like, this might be very graphic, it felt like it was falling off. It just felt like it was burning all the time. Even if I put water on my face, it was not helping. And now that I know what I know now, looking back, my skin barrier was absolutely destroyed. And I was so confused because I trusted my dermatologist, and I trusted that these medications, these topical prescriptions, were going to work for me and my acne, but it actually made it a lot worse. And it's because I didn't have a skin barrier. So that's why with every single one of my clients, that is my first step. And there are no exceptions. If a client wants to immediately bump up to a 5% benzoyl peroxide, I tell them no, because I'm the expert. I've treated hundreds of clients, and we have to approach the barrier first. So I personally am not the type of person to do a peel on a first-time client or do dermaplaning on a first-time client. I am not a heavy aggressor like that when it comes to treatments. So barrier first is always my motto. And it's our motto here at Hale and Hush as well. So healthy skin functions better, and it's better equipped to heal a lot faster. So we're going to dive more into this topic, and I'm really excited to bring in today's guest, Ella Cressman, and together we're going to discuss what she's seeing in her practice, common acne misconceptions, and how she approaches treating acne while still protecting that delicate skin barrier. So welcome, Ella.
Hi, Krisstan. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be a part of this conversation, to hush up and listen as much as we're going to be talking to, because I think this topic especially is super important. I've been a licensed esthetician for 20 years. I've had a lot of different roles in this industry, and then also, of course, a whole other life seemingly before I became an esthetician. But I'll tell you, this topic is one that is a head scratcher, so I'm very excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. So an esthetician for 20 years, that's amazing.
It's embarrassing.
Sorry, you said embarrassing?
It's embarrassing to say it out loud, because then I'm like, I don't feel like I'm that old, right? I feel like I am still 27 years old or 28 years old, you know what I mean?
Right.
But yeah.
So. You look and sound young, so.
I tried, girl, I tried.
Yes, acne is such a head scratcher because it really does depend case by case on the individual. And so, do you treat acne in your own space?
Yeah, I guess I got so excited talking about how I'm an esthetician. I'm a business owner, and I started my business right after school, which was in 2006, 2007. And so it was a very scary time, way different than it is now. But Of course, one of the first conditions I'll say that became really healthy for my business, as horrible as that sounds, is acne. Because back then, facials were seen as luxury, but treatments were seen as like potentially a necessity. So I learned early on in my career to really focus on fixing problems that for me at the time equaled business success. So I've been a corrective esthetician. I mean, now we really all are. But at the time, it was the verbiage that I switched up to be able to pull those people in. And by those people, I mean to help me stay afloat, because it was a way different time. And so, yes, I've treated acne since the beginning and have learned a lot because I've treated it the wrong way. And I've evolved my thinking to be a little bit more expansive, if you will, outside of like what we're fed or what we're taught in this industry.
And I feel like acne treatment and acne education has become a very new thing recently. I want to say in the past 5 years, even before COVID, I did not see much acne education out there. I mean, I'm only about 8, 9 years in the industry, but I feel like a lot of people were seeing dermatologists, still kind of guessing when it came to treating acne, and they didn't realize that estheticians were even an option.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly. I also feel like we had I'll call it the cosmetics industry has also set up these boxes that we're in, and the boxes that we want to fit everybody in is aging, or pigmentation, or acne. Basically, those were the three boxes that we had, and they've expanded out a little bit more. But when we looked at what the options were for the public, and then a little bit more for the professionals, but was an approach to assume that all acne is caused by an oil production issue.
Yeah. Yes.
And I think that the more we learn about the whole person and other circumstances, the better we are. And it's all that is exciting to really put those into motion or put those into practice.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed that part of working with my acne clients, is just kind of piecing together parts of a story that make up them, and just kind of getting to the root cause of things and understanding their lifestyle, and then once they clear their skin, it's the most rewarding and fulfilling thing I think I've experienced in this industry.
Yes.
And so, what are some of the biggest misconceptions about acne that you hear from clients? You know, like you said, we assumed that acne was just due to an excess oil production, but it's so much more than that.
It is so much more than that. And I think from clients, what I hear is an association, like a fault association. So remember a long time ago, they used to say like eating too much chocolate will give you a pimple?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Or eating French fries is going to give you a pimple. And it was like, it was my fault. It's my fault I have acne because I had my face on my hand when I was sleeping last night. Or it's my fault I had acne because I had sugar, whatever. It's that first and foremost, one misconception is that it's somehow a fault issue, like it's a guilt thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think the other thing would be that some of those causes equals some of these other solutions, and not doing what you mentioned, which is listening to the whole story, as you put it. I think those are the biggest misconceptions for me. And then also the fixes. Like, I can't tell you how many come in as like a last resort because they've tried this at the grocery store. They saw this on TikTok. They Googled this and did research. For example, I'll tell you, this is a great example. So I'm an esthetician. I've been doing it a long time. I've helped a lot of people. And now my nephew he's 14, but or at the time he was 14. He's 14 years old. He's got that hormonal thing happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
So his mom, who is now divorced from my brother, did some research, and they found that ivermectin was going to help his pimples.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, great. If it works, I'm excited about it. But just those little things, like, why not just come ask me? We could have that conversation.
Right. Exactly. Okay. And that's, I think the struggle is that people don't realize that estheticians and acne specialists are a thing. And so I think with all of this new education out there and acne specialists marketing themselves, we've really established ourselves as an option. And so I'm hoping more people can see that, especially people that treat things from a more holistic perspective, which is all about us here at Hale and Hush, is really looking at things from a holistic viewpoint. And so yeah, acne is tricky, and it's hard because a lot of clients want to do what they want to do, but acne really is living by a specific lifestyle sometimes. And have you seen cases where aggressive acne treatments actually make the skin a lot worse?
Oh my gosh, I can't wait to tell you this story, Kristen. Okay, yes, not only have I seen it, but I've done it. Like, let's take a ride in the Wayback Machine from when I first started out. And I was carrying a line that had acne, subline, if you will. Well, there you go. That's the solution, right? Client has acne equals give them this retail equals do this treatment on them. And so classic acne treatments are salicylic based or benzoyl peroxide based. Same with the home care, right? And so not only have I seen it, as I mentioned, but I've perpetuated it. I've contributed to making things worse. And it was really an untangling some of that mess that I made, that I helped make, I should say, that I started to see skin a little bit differently early on in my career. And so part of that is because of where I live. So I live in Colorado. It's high mountain desert. Dry, dry, dry. So when we're thinking, or what we've been taught about acne, no matter who it is, some of these early on teachings were like, it's oil, so you're going to strip the oil. But what I noticed here in Colorado specifically, a lot of the acne that we were getting here was actually dry. And so the resolve or the relief was going to come from hydrating, because it's almost like those sebaceous plugs, if you will, were getting stuck in the skin. They were getting stuck, and then the body's like, let's fight it and push it out. But if they were not getting stuck, so if you were hydrating with the right kind of moisturizer or some hyaluronic acid, everything could move out a little bit freer. So that was one, for example. And then more recently, and if I may add, one of the things I love about this industry is you're always learning something new. So I'm going to be honest with you. Always, right?
Yes, always.
I have to be 100% honest with, you think of these lines and what their intentions are, and you associate them with a certain problem. And so I had known about Hale and Hush for years. And I thought, oh yeah, they're sensitive. I never really adopted into the thinking until the last year, I'll say. I got Hale and Hush products in, and oh my gosh, did this make a difference with this client I'm about to tell you? It was one of those things, Kristen, have you ever worked on a client and you're like, whoa, it's changing right before my eyes. Gosh, look at this. This was one of those moments for me. So I'll tell you about this client. This client is late 40s, and she come in, girl, I'm getting chills telling you about this. If I can tell you, she's a Fitzpatrick 5, and she had the worst acne along her jawline. Now, she's a longtime client, but she's that client that comes real regularly and then disappears for a while, comes back really regularly and then disappears for a while. So I hadn't seen her in a little bit, but I've known over the last year or so, she lost her sister, she lost her mom, she was trying to get pregnant, she suffers from migraine. So obviously some grief, some hormones, some other things. And what I came to find out is that she was on some hormone pellets, and she started getting this acne, and her doctor prescribed her then spironolactone to block the androgen. So it's all this in my opinion, in my non-medical opinion, just in my very judgmental self, I'm like, why are they giving you testosterone just to block it? And then also you're on a diuretic when you're grieving, so all of your skin processes are slowing down. You're perimenopausal, so it's like a roller coaster. This is the wrong fix, is what I'm saying in my head.
Right.
So she's, again, mentioned Fitzpatrick 5. She's Native American background, Spanish background, indigenous to Mexican background, all these different things. So very reactive. And I'm just this is the wrong answer. I can't tell her that though, but we're working through it. I used that Relief Bio Powder on her. Yeah. And immediately there was just what the name states. Relief. And there we go. So I had to have a long talk with her about what was going on, what was going on inside, the approach we needed to take outside. The dermatologist had given her all these active, aggressive things, and they were talking about putting her on Accutane at this age. And I was like, please don't. So you asked, have I seen cases where these aggressive treatments, not just what the dermatologist prescribed her, but also what her primary or her, I don't know if it's primary care or what, that was prescribing the hormones and then the spironolactone, like this whole team of people were steering her in a way where her skin was paying the price. And those are what they prescribe normally, right? This is what they say normally for those treatments.
Yeah.
And then the same thing for another client. He's also a Fitzpatrick 5 and just a little bit more hereditary. And he had been treating by an acne specialist with benzoyl peroxide and such. And it was just stripping his barrier to a point where when he smiled, it hurt. It hurt when he smiled. And so we took that barrier first approach, supported it. And I am telling you, the results that were instant with that one client where you could just see the red purple is like burgundy. It was so angry. It was burgundy because of her Fitzpatrick, but it started just softening and you could see, it almost felt like it was going like sizzling, the fire was going out. I was like, oh my gosh, this stuff is amazing.
Yeah. Relief Biopowder, I've said this in another episode, is magic in a bottle. And I'm so glad that we have that as an option for people. And a lot of people don't view us as an acne line, right? We're really that sensitive skin staple, but you're dealing with a skin condition that has redness, inflammation, pigmentation issues, skin barrier issues, and using Hail and Hush can actually be so beneficial for these acne clients. And I think kind of the same way as you is throughout the years of treating acne, you had that traditional method that you learned where it's like chemical peels, chemical peels, chemical peels, when a lot of it really was barrier repair for my clients. Obviously, you still need some gentle exfoliation. And that kind of leads me into the next topic is, how do you balance treating acne while protecting sensitive or compromised skin? And it's really just barrier health. And like for a time when I was treating acne, I was like, there's no way it could be this simple. Like I feel like we tend to overcomplicate a lot of things, or at least I do. And I was just like, wait, this is the answer, or at least part of the answer to treating acne. So, but I've been there with your clients where Accutane was my last resort. I had really severe adult acne, and a lot of these dermatologists and these primary cares do prescribe you these high prescription topicals without any kind of moisturizer, without any kind of gentle cleanser. And so, yes, I understand that burning sensation. And so it's really such a inflammatory issue as well.
I agree with you 100%. And it's also the difference too is you mentioned these doctors prescribe these things without right, they like a target, they're like a bullet, a single bullet straight to hit this presumed target, and they don't have the same follow-up opportunity that we do to like adjust for somebody's unique needs. So maybe they need a little bit less of this, a little bit more of this, like just to find that delicate balance for that particular person is an opportunity for us. So a lot of times when my clients come in with like, oh, I went to the derm, I'm like rolling my eyes, but we're, oh, you did? How'd that go? Or like, I'm going to the derm in a couple weeks. I'm like, oh, do you want some help preparing your, because you get 14 minutes if you're lucky with them. And so do you want me to help you prepare like the most effective 14 minutes of your life? But yeah, I agree with all of that. And so you asked like, how do I balance treating the acne with sensitive or compromised skin? And I think I agree with you wholeheartedly also that sometimes if you just address calming or desensitizing or regulating or normalizing, I have seen the acne kind of normalize itself too, or definitely reduce. And so it's I think you have to barrier first, and then you can assess, okay, what else could be a cause, or what do we have now,
Yeah, absolutely. That's my approach with all of my clients is barrier first, at least 2 to 3 weeks before we even introduce any kind of exfoliation method. And I think, there's a lot of misinformation out there. People assume that treating the barrier first isn't even going to yield any results. A lot of people just want that exfoliation, like just exfoliate it off of my face. But there's a lot more in the works when it comes to that. Our skin is definitely just a whole system. It's an organ. And so it's very tricky trying to navigate acne, especially with social media, all of these trends and all of these different things. And it really comes down to figuring out your specific triggers, your specific root causes. And what are some of the most common acne triggers that you've seen in your practice?
Emotions.
Yes.
Honestly,
I love having people on this podcast because I always am surprised by people's point of views. Like, I've never heard emotions. I think that's so important to even consider.
it is. And it's one thing that I don't think enough people really do consider.
Mm-hmm.
What do you got going on right now? What else is going on? And it's not like you can say like, okay, let's trace it back, and are you depressed or are you so happy? So I think understanding that and approaching it in a certain kind of way really is a skill set that could be mastered. Thinking of your client, your patient as a whole person, adding that into your equation during your consultation is going to help you get to your goals, their goals, your goals faster, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I 100% agree because, I mean, when you think about it, it all boils down to hormones. You know, when you're stressed or excited, you have that adrenaline, you have that cortisol increase. And so that can definitely play a role with oil production, surprisingly. So I would definitely agree that emotions play a big role because I've gone through grief, I've gone through depressive episodes, and during those times, my acne is the worst. And so it's definitely a conversation to be had about how your client is feeling in that moment and how to help them through that with skincare, with facials. Because even giving a facial to my clients, you know, I have clients that are in college, they're going through all these crazy exams,
Mm-hmm.
they're also working part-time while they're at school, and you know, they come in and they're just so stressed out, but when they leave, they're so relaxed, they're just so much less stressed. And I think that has a lot to do with their healing journey as well. So yeah, I agree with you there for sure. And have you seen signs that a client may be over treating their acne?
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's a delicate dance when you notice that because you don't want to like wag your finger and shame, shame, shame. What are you doing wrong? You want to approach it in a way that I see why you would do that. That I see why
Yeah.
that would make sense, and I can see why you would take that approach. Can I explain something to you? Asking for permission to like shift their mindset, not in a way that's going to make them feel bad, but you want to empower them. I mean, honestly, with my clients and my patients specifically, my part of what we talk about in the initial consultation is I want to empower you to navigate the shifts because life is not just the same every day or anything like that.
Hmm.
We have seasonal shifts, we have life shifts, all the things. So I want to empower you. So I want to explain how the skin works and what could be going on with you and explain it that way. So when I do have someone that comes in that could be over treating, I explain why I think this could be an over treatment and what they could look for and what they could shift and change so that they do feel empowered to be able to connect other potential triggers or just know their body and their skin in a different kind of a way.
Yeah, I agree. And a lot of people turn to DIY treatments. A lot of them also, I mean, I'm not going to lie, skincare is not affordable. Most skincare brands are not affordable, but that's why I like Kayla and Hush is they are, and they last a long time for clients. And when you're over treating your acne, sometimes you're doing a lot more damage that needs to be corrected later on. And so you are spending a lot more money in the long run trying to fix what you've been over treating and what you've been doing to your skin. And so a lot of the signs that I've seen is just excess redness, a lot more picking, things like that. And so I love your approach of just educating the client what their skin is doing, what it's meant to do, how to go from there, and what to look for. I really like that because a lot of my clients come in and they're like, please don't judge me, please don't, but I did this. And so I'm just like, that's okay,
Yeah, I see why you did that. That makes sense to me.
yeah.
I get it. I would do that too, but let me talk you something
Yeah,
else. Yeah.
but let's figure out how to go from there. And I think that a lot of clients feel a little embarrassed trying to explain things that they've done, like, especially dermaplaning at home. A lot of my clients feel like they can't be honest with me about them doing that because I think they're afraid that they'll get shamed because they've been shamed in the past for doing something like that. But I think that as the expert, as the licensed professional, you should definitely take that educational approach and just explain to them, exactly what you said. This is what your skin does, and this is what we can do from here, and why that isn't a good option to do at home.
I always say I used to put toothpaste on my pimples, so I get it. Like, if it works, great, but it didn't work. So
I think we've all definitely done some sort of DIY at home, and kind of cringy to think about, but it happens to a lot of us. And sometimes that's people's only option that they know of, or that's just something that they want to try. So I know you mentioned that you have a nephew, and so how do you approach acne differently for teens versus adults? Because, they're growing, they have all these hormones, they're going through puberty. Is there a different way that you treat them versus adult acne?
yeah, different causation, right? And especially different in, born male, born female at that age too.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times with, female, they're more cyclical, obviously, so it's a little hormonal. And then with like my nephew, for example, it's a constant hormones, not as cyclical of hormones, but more of like a flood of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always, with my teens, I spend the most time with them, educating them, because they're foundational right now. They do have a lot more influence than we did at their age, but it's a good, just kind of instilling that same mindset of being very aware of their own bodies and their own causes and such. So that's one way. I think also it's, honestly, I prefer to keep it super simple for the teenage population. Also for the adult population, but super simple. And not to plug Hale and Hush, but this is another reason why I've kind of fallen in love with their products, is because they're not marketed for acne necessarily. So it really matches what I do as far as empowering, but it kind of emphasizes or fortifies the message for my teens that they take into adulthood of looking at their skin in a way that how's it going to be the most healthy, instead of looking at their skin of why is it not healthy. Does that make sense? So
Yeah,
a more
absolutely.
positive mindset of I'm going to make my skin healthy, not what problems can I fix right now? How do we make it the optimal? And so with adult acne, we have to do a little bit more digging to find out what could be going on. And then it is a gender divide in that area too, because you have everything, men aren't on birth control yet. So they don't have the same kind of contributors. The
Mm-hmm.
contributors are different, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So yes, I have my little, let's ask these questions, because let's figure out my Nancy Drew list for each section of, adult versus adolescent, or male versus female, or hormonal changes. And so I think my difference is really just a set of questions that I would ask different, and then also spending more time teaching with the adolescent population, and then more time leading with the adults. So for example, I think with the younger, like the teen acne, I would probably start them with X product, right? Start them with a cleanser, like Quiet Wash, perfect, or even the Clarify Wash, like one of those two. And then a simple moisturizer and an SPF. Done. Just start there, because you're going to shift, you're going to flow. Just start there. Where I might add something else for an adult, or now we're looking at hyperpigmentation for the adults,
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I've worked with teens in their acne before, and that also comes with working with the parents too. Getting the parents to also be on board, be part of that journey and that conversation with them, because I have had teens that struggle with consistency. And so incorporating their parents or their guardians into the treatments and helping them also understand what their child needs to do, it's helped a lot as well, because they are able to help them at home be a little bit more consistent, and just they're able to help with the food, with their diet, with a little bit more of their lifestyle. Like I've had teens that are in sports and stuff like that, and so sometimes they don't think about disinfecting their gear, their sports gear. And so I've had parents that after a sports game, they'll go ahead and help them disinfect their stuff. And I think just having that support system, especially for a teenager, is so important, because then it's not so much like, what's wrong with you. It's more of like, how can I help support you and your skin?
I'm glad you brought that up because the other thing is meeting them where they are.
Yeah.
So another client I had, she's so cute. She's so cute. She just graduated high school a couple
Yeah.
weeks ago or whatever. And she came in a couple months ago for the first time and just the same thing, like the red, inflamed, angry acne, forehead, cheek, all over, all over.
Yeah.
And so she plays softball. She does this. She goes camping with her friends. She eats, what a teenager eats her age eats. A lot of those 7 Brew or the Dutch Bros stuff. And
Yeah.
none of my business. You want to go live your life, honey. Go for it.
Yes.
So I'm going to meet you where you are. I'm not going to sell you this serum or this cleanser or this moisturizer if you're not going to use it. So tell me how this could work. What are you doing now? Do you think we could start off this way? Great. Okay, good. And the next check-in, how'd that go? Were you able to use it? Oh, cool. Did you skip a couple days? Yeah, that's pretty normal. That's awesome. Okay. Do you think we can add one more product in? Okay, great. And then we add one thing. And so she looked so good. She was getting ready to graduate the next day. She came in. I was like, oh my gosh, look at your skin. It looks amazing. She's like, I know, my friends all said something. She goes, I just got back from camping over the weekend. I didn't wash my face once. I'm like, no problem. Looks great. Whatever. But I did send her away. She's like, I'm graduating. And the next day I have a softball tournament, blah, blah. I was like, okay, hey, I want you to try this. Take this with you. And I gave her the Miss Me travel size. I'm like, keep this in your bag. And then, because in softball, they wear the masks for when they're outfield, and then of course when they wear their helmets when they're batting or whatever. And so I was like, just wipe it down when you're done, and then or spray your face. Don't touch it because you've been hands in and out of gloves and whatnot. And so it did help her. And when she left, she was so happy, but she was more concerned about whether or not she was going to cry at her graduation or not than her face. And I'm like, goals, because we're skin people, right? And I think we forget that we're skin people. We live this. We breathe this. I dream about skin. They're not. Yeah. And so meeting them where they are is also another important thing, especially with acne, because you want, and another thing you mentioned is it's not cheap. It's not cheap to try to find these solutions. So what you want to make sure it's something that they're going to use. And so even introducing 1 product, 2 product, and then adding on once they start to see a change, a shift, and they buy into it, I feel establishes a long-term relationship, but also encourages better results.
Yes.
And I love that about Hale and Hush specifically, because you can just kind of add it on. It's a very accessible price point. It's okay for those trial and errors, but also it seems to be more of, instead of a bullet, it's more like a shotgun shell where it's kind of a bigger net to catch a lot of these issues ahead of time.
Yeah, I completely agree, because Hale and Hush addresses so many different things in each of their products. Like each product has their specific design and their specific concerns that they treat, but for the most part, all of them help with inflammation, reducing inflammation. All of them help with reducing redness. It's loaded with antioxidants, protective ingredients, and that's why you can't go wrong with Hale and Hush, because like you said, you could just build off of it. You don't have to give them a 7-step routine. You can literally start them out with the basics and add on. And I think personally that's the best way to get clients to acclimate anyways. That's the best method. And so Hale and Hush is great for teens. It's great for adults with or without acne. And I think that's why I love the line so much.
I would agree with you.
And when it comes to lifestyle factors, that's a big part of acne. Have you seen any specific lifestyle habits that contribute to persistent breakouts?
I think you mentioned it earlier, but it is lifestyle. So there's a lot of different possibilities. One that we've connected now for a while, but it seems to be the hardest for clients. And that is the diet, the connection of, not the diet, but the connection of food to face. Because you also mentioned hormones previously, and what some foods can trigger hormonally, which can then communicate. I'm not quite sure what's going on here, but let's just try to get this one thing out of the face. So recently, again, I have a longtime client, and she came in and she had a breakout on her chin, and we were able to trace it back to Easter. And asking questions like, nothing's changed? Nothing's changed? Are you sure? Nope, nothing's changed. And this is something that happens a lot, especially in adult acne, like the adults that come in, right? No, I've been doing the same thing. Nope, I haven't had any more bread. Nope, I didn't have any of this. And you like keep asking the questions. That's what I was telling that Nancy Drew style questions, like, okay, here are the, obvious offenders, and then you refine it down. But if you keep tracing back, and it's okay, like people want to tell you how healthy they're eating, especially here in Colorado. Mm-hmm. No, I have this, I eat quinoa, I have tofu, I have soy milk, and you're like, oh, cool, estrogen, like you're thinking this, okay, that could be it. Or maybe it's a sensitivity to the food that they don't even know that they're not even aware of.
Yes.
And so that, I think, that is the lifestyle factor that contributes to the most puzzling of breakouts. And it's not like we're nutritionists, and nor do we need to be, but tracing it back to imply awareness for them. Awareness in a way that comes away from judgment. Did you think about this? And so with that one client I was telling you about, she's in her mid-50s, and again, a higher Fitzpatrick, but it was fun to kind of trace that back and say, hey, what do you think? How about Easter? She's like, oh my gosh, you know what? She eats very healthy, very typical Colorado diet, but she's like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, I think so. It's like, well, let's see how it looks next month and see if it's better. And sure enough, it was, but it was interesting of that connection,
Yeah, I mean, I've said this before in like my social media. I always talk about it to my clients, of course, that we don't think that food has that sort of impact on us and our skin. And so I do try to educate them a little bit more on acne triggering foods. And obviously, not everyone is going to have the same food triggers when it comes to their acne. Some people are fine with dairy, some people are not. But that's why in my acne classes too, I talk about what the different foods could potentially do when it comes to affecting acne. So I think as an acne expert, you should kind of verse yourself or learn about all the different foods that could potentially impact acne, because it's not the direct cause. It really does have a contributing factor though. And so I think it's important to briefly discuss that with your client, but still find that fine line where you're not overstepping, right? You're not going out of scope of
Can I add
practice.
One? I'm sorry.
No,
I would
ahead.
also add like what might not be normal for them too. Not just like the offenders. Like I said earlier, chocolate and French fries, or other. For me, what causes a response in me are Brazil nuts.
Brazil nuts.
Okay. I'm not going to find them. Do not get me started about comedogenic because I think it's a whole other episode. But for me, something in the Brazil nuts, I think it's the selenium, gives me some kind of a gastrointestinal response to where I'll inevitably get a pimple on the side of my nose.
Specifically there, all the time.
All the time, right there. And so, and acne has been studied for a long time. We have Chinese face mapping that'll tell you what area of the skin might link back, like right between the eyebrows, liver, and it's not, again, not a diagnostic, staying within scope of practice, but just a guide to prompt you to have to question them so they have awareness around that. So for comedogenic ingredients, I think, or comedogenicity period, when you trace back the origin of that scale, do you want me to tell you now?
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah, I'm all ears.
Oh, all ears. Good one. You know why? Because what they used to do is they would take a single ingredient and they would test it on bunny ears, white bunny, lab bunnies, because they could see the pores. And so they'd put it on bunny ears and they're like, okay, if this is going to make a blackhead, then it's comedogenic.
Yeah.
Single ingredient on bunny ears equals comedogenic. But there are so many other variables that are not appropriate or not applicable or do not translate into human skin, including formulation. The next thing is they're like, oh, PETA's on the case. This is my version, okay? PETA's on the case. We can't test on animals anymore. If we're going to test on humans, we better do it on their back. But we know there's a completely different concentration and network of sebaceous glands on the back versus the face. Not to mention, it's not a controlled environment because you don't know about genetics, you don't know about lipid matrix, set up that way. You don't know about their diet, their lifestyle, acne mechanica friction if they're playing rugby at night. You don't know any of those things. But if a blackhead happens on there, then this ingredient is comedogenic. Now, I think there can be things that could cause blackheads, comedones. But I think the comedogenic rating and acne, the term acne safe is such a dangerous thing because it's putting things into boxes that might not belong there.
Yeah, and I think it's purely just marketing. I think acne safe, pore clogging ingredients are really just marketing terms to promote that their line is the best for acne prone skin. And so I completely agree with you. I have a lot of thoughts about comedogenicity as well. And, that's such an old study. Like you said, it was done on rabbit ears, and it's just so different from human skin, especially the face. And like you said, formulation absolutely matters because we have delivery systems that are able to deliver these ingredients safely into the skin. And I think that a lot of people don't realize there's a lot of chemistry involved when it comes to creating skincare and creating these formulations. And so you definitely can't just base it off of one ingredient that you see in the deck. And you just have to, kind of trial and error a little bit, see what some people are a little bit more sensitive to. That's why we always recommend patch testing things. But for the most part, I feel like I did put myself in a box when I was just learning about acne. Like I have to use things that are acne safe, acne safe, acne safe. I can't use anything with oils. I can't use anything with shea butter. The list goes on and on. And we have a few of those ingredients in our products. And, I'm very highly acne prone and I've had absolutely no problem. My clients have had no issues. And it's definitely another larger rabbit hole when it comes
It's
to acne.
rabbit hole, get it? Haha.
Yeah.
But I think that's the thing is that I think we were trained to look at the back, right? Turn it over, look at the back, and scan for crappy ingredients. But it just doesn't tell the whole story. And it's especially evident when we like the intention of the formulation and then at what percentages and what complement, because this could actually balance that out, and what else is in there. I didn't mention, but I'm also a certified organic skincare formulator. And it was when I was in school for that I was like, oh my gosh, this kind of fortified what I had been seeing in vivo, in real life practice, that I had learned those things too, right? I learned that, but it wasn't really ringing true for me in real life. And so when I went for formulation school, I was like, oh, that makes sense. So I likened it to one time I used this analogy and it was really funny, but do you know chocolate cake, right? Have you ever made a chocolate cake from scratch?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, you put the cocoa, you put the flour, you put the sugar, put the eggs, all that stuff, and you put salt in there. And so salt is a flavor enhancer, but it also has function in how all those ingredients work together. And that's why you get a moist, fluffy, whatever the desired consistency of your cake is, salt. But if you were to look at the ingredients in this and you were, let's say, worried about hypertension and you can't have salt, and you just see that salt's in this recipe, you might not try it. But we know that you're not going to, it's not going to have the same effect because it's just a pinch. Or it's just like a half a teaspoon. And so that's the same thing in formulations, is you could have coconut oil versus fractionated coconut oil, and there's a completely different profile of those. And so your skin's going to have a different response. Or other oils, for example, other seed oils or other nut oils that if you were to just completely dismiss them, it might be the right combination or the right ingredient for somebody else. Brazil nuts, I mentioned, I'm sensitive to them. I get a pimple, but for other people, they're actually known to help people who have pimples. So you have to, I guess for me, skincare is a never always, it's let's see, let's try this. It's always like, let's keep trying it. And that's one of the fun parts about seeing so many different kinds of people, is that you're learning from this client, and you're going to apply some of that over here to this client, but learn a little bit more. And then you're going to apply all of that plus a little bit more to the next client, and also wrapping your own lived experience in that as well.
Yeah, and obviously it's not a precursor to have acne to be an acne expert or acne specialist or anything like that, but it's definitely helped me relate a lot to my clients. I obviously don't know exactly what they're going through. It does amount to some empathy with them, that we're just trying to figure out our bodies, trying to figure out our skin.
And then also with that empathy, you're able to describe certain things. Like I noticed when I'd get pimples and I'd push on it, and if it was like a sharp pain, I knew that the next day something else would come out of there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I knew if I pushed on it and it was just like a bruise, I thought I got it all myself, right?
Right.
So now when I'm, doing something, I'll push on it after on a client, right? I push on it, it's like sharp pain or bruise or like sharp pain. I'm like, we didn't get everything. Hold on, coming back in. So some of that empathy or connecting your personal experience and some of the things that were triggers for you and starting from that point,
Right.
I noticed this happen with me. Did that happen with you too? No. Okay. I noticed this happened to me. Did that happen to you too?
Absolutely. Yeah. And what advice would you give someone who feels like they've tried everything for their acne?
I get it. I believe you. I believe you. But you got this. You want to try one more thing. I know you've tried everything. Let's try something else. Let's try a different approach. Or tell me everything you've tried. I'd love to understand it more. So I would agree with them. They've tried everything. I'd just acknowledge, yeah, you put in a lot of work. I understand. Can we try something else? Are you open to trying something else?
I've definitely hit those roadblocks where, like, I'm definitely someone's last option, but there's always something else that you can do. I partner with naturopathic practitioners and these hormone specialists that I can refer my clients to. So it's not the end of the road. I understand that it's a long journey for a lot of people, but it's definitely not the end. There's always an option. There's always something that you can do to treat acne, and there's a lot of different people out there with different experiences that are able to help. I just don't want people to think that, okay, I saw the derm, I'm going on Accutane. That's not the end all be all. And there's just so much more that you can do and you can try. And I know it's exhausting and definitely costs a lot of money, but I think when you've found the right path for yourself that works, I would definitely not stray from that. I've had clients where, like, we cleared them and they think that, that's it. They're clear. They don't have to maintain or do anything else. But that's actually part of the journey, is maintaining that acne. And I think that a lot of clients feel like, they're working towards some goal where they just end up clearing and then that's all they have to do. So I think it's important to understand too that acne is kind of a lifelong journey as well. It's not you just try something, that's it, and you're done. It's a continuous thing.
It very much can be. I would say, I would agree with you on that. I say the skin is a long journey too, because, okay, you did the Accutane, that's fantastic. Let's get your barrier fortified, because that's compromised if it's not producing any oil.
Mm-hmm.
But also, even you get it cleared, you have pocking, you have hyperpigmentation. There's other things to consider. But then also, just as soon as you got it dialed in, your lifestyle changes. You get a new job, or you're older now, or all those other lifestyle contributors come in. And so being on your game, I think it's job security for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And what does a successful acne treatment plan look like to you?
Such a subjective answer in that question. But I would say anytime I have a new client with acne, or an acne is their primary concern, my treatment plan approach is to have them buy into 6 months. And I explain to them, can you commit to me for 6 months, and I'm going to commit to you for 6 months? And can we take measurable, or can we hope for measurable changes? Then I explain that this, as long as there's a upward trajectory of positive results, we're on the right track, but there's going to be 3 steps forward, 1 step back, and that's fine. It's just part of understanding it more. So a successful treatment plan for me looks like 6 month increments, and we try and we shift and we adjust, and we start out seeing, every 2 weeks, and then go to 3 weeks, and then 4 weeks, to dial it in and launch them, get them to fly on their own, but come back once a month for maintenance. But that usually is very successful for me, for their results, but also as a sustained loyal client, So that's what it looks like to me. What those intricacies are, what those specific details, is subjective to that particular person. But generally speaking, what I like to do is start out with a barrier supportive, like we'll call it analysis type facial. Not jumping into anything, because I've got all the bells and whistles here. But we're not jumping into that first. We want to assess and understand the response. So I start out with a facial that is very much, I'm watching, I'm looking for reaction, I'm touching and feeling how the skin is responding. And then we start out with a very simple home care program. Very simple. And I explain that. We've gone through everything that they already have, what they've already done. We've pitched or thrown out the stuff that doesn't work. We've repurposed other things for other areas of the body. Or we've taken what they do have, because sometimes it's good stuff, and pared it down to be minimal. We're going to start with 3 to 4 products. That's it. And then we build from there over those next 6 months.
I actually have the same treatment plan.
It works.
Which I think is great because it works. It does. And, you have programs where people are like, I can clear you in 3 to 4 months. And in my opinion, and working with acne clients directly, 3 to 4 months is too little time to clear the client and get them the results and also maintain their skin and work on anything else like the pigmentation, scarring, all of that. 3 to 4 months is usually when I see purging, actually. And so you kind of want to get past that 3 to 4 month hump, and then it's going to take another maybe 3 months to really reach that full level of clearing to the point where you're on maintenance from there. And so I love that you straight up just tell clients, hey, can you commit to me for 6 months? Because I think that's the other part of it too, is the commitment level. If they're not ready to commit for 6 months, then it might not be the best fit. And that's okay to admit and okay to say to that client is, we may not be a good fit because this is how I operate. This is what I have done that's helped other clients, and either commit to it or you don't. As much as you want to help every single person, there is a commitment level that comes with it as well.
Yeah, and not every personality's match yours. It's okay. You got to make sure that you're spending your energy or your emotional currency with the right person.
Yeah, and I know that sounds a little bit harsh, right? But I think they do need to understand too that acne is so complex that sometimes you do need to have a structured plan when approaching it, because it is very strategic what we're doing. We're trying to, like we said before, try to piece parts of a puzzle. And, when clients end up doing DIY stuff and they steer a little bit clear from your treatment plan, the puzzle gets all messed up. And so I think it is important to have that conversation of commitment level, because that also determines how successful that client will be.
That's also job security when they do that DIY stuff.
Yeah.
They come back, and that's why you make that safe space where they can come back and be honest and be straightforward. Or maybe it works, great. Well, then you got this. Let's work on the next thing then.
Ella, if listeners could take away one thing from today's conversation about acne, what would you want it to be?
To pan out their vision, like zoom out instead of narrowing an approach for acne. You really need to pan out and then take out a bigger, wider look, right? The panoramic picture, to see everything all the way around, so you can understand or gain an understanding or a perspective or offer insight based on a bigger picture, not just what you've been fed, So that's what I would say. Number 1. Number 2, then use Hail and Hush.
Yes, the second most important thing.
No, I really think it's a lot about, like, we have been, and I worked in education for brands for a long time. So I'm very well aware of the education that's out there and then how it's crafted. And it was my job. I was charged with, like, hey, no, this isn't really how it's going in the real world. Yeah, but we want them to buy these products from us. We want them to put this. We want them to think that this is the only answer. And I happen to know that it's just not true. It's just not true. That you got to pan out, and you got to get away from that thinking that this is the only acne sequence, or this is the only acne protocol. You got to pan out and, like, adjust and be flexible. And that flexibility is important, because then you're able to look at the client in front of you, not client from 10 years ago that this was adopted for, or this idea that this was drafted in a boardroom for. This is for this client. So that's what I would do, is scrap everything you've learned and really just kind of get your intuition and start with the barrier, go slow, and it's going to work, I promise.
Thank you so much, Ella, for sharing, for sitting down and talking to us about acne. I've really appreciated our conversation.
Thank you for having me. And I'm genuinely, like, I have a lot of bells and whistles, but I was so excited that you asked me, because I really do see a difference. I really do see a difference with those products. And that's coming from a practicing esthetician with a med spa who's a formulator, who's also worked with other brands in the education and sales part of it too. So that I have got a very, very, very discerning eye, or very critical I'm critical of anything that comes into my practice.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to be that way. It's your business, and these products are getting sent home with clients, and you have to be kind of analytic about the products that you use. So we appreciate you having Hale and Hush in your treatment room.
Thanks, Kristen.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation. I could literally talk about acne all day. This would probably be 4 hours long if I could, but I should let you guys go. Thank you so much for listening thus far. I just want to leave you guys with a few brief thoughts. So, one of the biggest shifts we've seen in skincare in this industry is really moving away from the idea that more aggressive always means more effective. I am now seeing so many different estheticians embracing this concept of skin barrier first, and it just makes me so excited because that's what we've always been preaching about here at Hale and Hush. Thoughtful acne care, or being strategic about treating acne, really focuses on reducing that inflammation internally and externally. Supporting the skin barrier, of course, addressing that particular client's root causes, because not everyone is going to have the same root causes for their acne, and creating sustainable routines. So what I mean by sustainable routines is creating something that your client is able to do morning and night without getting overwhelmed, but they are able to maintain that. Unfortunately, there is no cure for acne, and so it does have to be managed daily. And a lot of my clients that continue to have success and continue to have clear skin is because they now understand how to treat acne and they are able to maintain it daily. So the goal isn't to really force the skin into clearing. The goal is to create an environment where healthier skin can thrive. And so that's why our main philosophy here centers around supporting the skin rather than overwhelming it. And I also wanted to just leave on another note that acne is not just something that affects people physically, it's something that affects people emotionally and mentally. So if you are someone who has a friend or a family member with acne, sometimes providing unsolicited advice can be really disheartening for that person. So it's important to continue to support them throughout their acne journey rather than blame them or shame them for having acne, because a lot of times it's really not their fault, or they just don't understand it and they don't have the proper guidance to treat it. And studies have shown that people with acne are more likely to not get a job compared to those who don't have acne. So that's how we view acne as a society. And it can be really hard on a person. And so I just want to leave with that note that you should never shame or judge someone for having acne. And June is Acne Awareness Month. So that's why we really wanted to have this podcast episode be about acne, because we want to share more education about acne, give people a better understanding about it and how to treat it and achieve clear skin, because that's what everybody wants, right? But for the acne client, you also have to put in the work, because acne is not just going to go away overnight. It is going to take weeks to months of hard work on your skin. So I just want to leave you guys with that note. And if there's one takeaway from today's episode, it's that acne is not just one thing. It's influenced by all of the things we've talked about: inflammation, hormones, lifestyle factors, diet, barrier health, genetics. There's not a one-size-fits-all solution. You have to approach treating acne with patience, you have to use strategy, and you have to use the right products. So that's what we're all about here at Hale and Hush. We're here about helping you guys understand these different skin conditions and giving you the proper products to support your skin. Thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode of Hush Up and Listen. Until next time, because I could talk on and on about this, please take care of your skin. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye!